Tonight on the Mac to the Future podcast, 1 quarter less iPhones sold and people are already talking about post-iPhone Apple. Write once, read by all is a goal with Apple for their operating systems. Does anyone still care about the Mac Pro other than a concept? And are updates right around the corner for Apple's platforms? Tonight on the Mac to the Future livecast. Oh! Yeah. It's Mac to the Future, episode 90. Read it. Wow, what was that? I am your host, one of your hosts, Guy Serle, as you can see there, right there on the bottom of the scroll. And I am joined this evening. I'm going to first go with who the person I think made that loud noise, and that is, no, don't do that. God, it's almost like I know what I'm doing, but not quite. Hello, Mr. Warren Sklar, how are you?
It wasn't me. I promise.
Well,
I swear.
yeah,
it
you
me.
say that. You say that.
It was me. But I saw everything's now silenced and nobody breathed. How are you doing?
So everything is awesome then?
Everything is silenced except for me. And
is it cool when you're part of a team?
It is. It's the dream to be a part of the team. Yes.
All right. Next up is, I don't know why it keeps showing that other screen. Hello there, David. How are you?
How you doing, Guy? What's going on? Glad to be here.
I don't know. I'm trying to get things going. Oh, I got something in my eye, and I'm trying to make it so that Facebook comments will work. We don't really know if they will or won't yet. Last week there was issues, but then it came back after having issues. I don't know why. I don't know why, but here we are. Okay, well, apparently they're all working. So
it's 5 months. It's 5 months to Mac stock. 5 months to Mac.
I got them too.
What? And I know what happened and part of the reason why we're late tonight is I was messing around with all of the comments, trying to get it to work the way I wanted it to, and it just wasn't working the way that I thought it was going to. But
it looks all right.
Reasonably sure that I know what I'm doing now. Reasonably sure. So, how are you all doing tonight? Is there anything going on in your lives of great significance? I understand you had a guest on your podcast there, Dave.
I did. If anybody wants to go listen to it, it just got released yesterday. In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com. And I had Donna Cleveland, who is the editor-in-chief of iPhone Life magazine. And we had a blast. It was a nice hour-long episode and a lot of fun. We had a lot of good discussion. Talked about a few things we're talking about tonight, too. So
cool.
But give it a listen. It was great.
What about you, Mr. Sklar?
Oh, lots of stuff going.
See how I've got it down to a science now, where it like zooms in and zooms out.
I see that.
Just like I know what I'm doing, almost.
So, what's going on with me? I bought a guitar and a input thing to go into my laptop.
Yeah, you got a Scarlett 2i2?
The 2i2, and I played with it. I plugged in GarageBand. I could get it to record, and then it's pretty cool. I could get it to output to different things, and it makes the guitar sound a little bit different.
Right. Well, you got all the effects and stuff that you can put in.
Yeah.
You talking about in GarageBand, or are you talking about with Focusrite's software?
In GarageBand, I didn't install the Focusrite Lite.
Okay.
That they give you. So in GarageBand, if you start with the instrument and you plug it in, and you play some chords, and then you could do one or two things. You could record and not have it output, and then change the output to different instruments. Obviously, it only works with guitar, so I can make my acoustic sound like electric. And it's pretty cool. I may need to pick your brain because I'm getting more hiss than I would like to get out of this. So
Are you talking about on the guitar or with a microphone hooked up?
With the guitar. So if I play the guitar, the recording, when I play back the recording, there's some hissing in the background.
Okay,
So
well that could actually be the pickups in the guitar that are doing that. It's
yeah. Well, so like everything has a volume control. The Mac has like a volume in GarageBand. The 2i2 has its knobs everywhere that I don't know what they do. And then the guitar itself has volumes on there too. So
yeah.
So I don't know. Like they're all kind of fighting with each other. I don't know which one should be up or whatever. So we'll talk about that.
Okay, because that was an Epiphone, wasn't it? Wasn't it an Epiphone guitar?
It's an Epiphone. It's Gibson's low end line.
Yeah,
it seems.
Well, yeah. I don't know if I told you guys this. I have or had. He's since passed away. I had an uncle who was a professional jazz guitarist, going all the way back to like the 40s. I mean, he dropped out of high school. This is in the Chicago area, actually, Dave. He dropped out of high school, and at the age of 15 or 16, and became a professional jazz guitarist, and played with a bunch of different bands. Realized relatively soon that he wasn't going to make a whole lot of money as a traveling musician, even though he had some great gigs. So he started selling for Gibson. He was like one of the Northeast reps for Gibson guitars, and was really, really doing well. I mean, he had a house on Lake George, I think, which is in the New York area, exclusive, George, whatever. Yeah. Yep. And was doing really well. And then Gibson bought Epiphone in the early 60s, I think, or late 50s. I can't remember. And the guy that was the president for Gibson at the time, I think his name was Ted McCarthy, something like that. And my uncle, who had a tendency to imbibe, shall we say, a bit, and say things that would sometimes get him into trouble. They had, right after Gibson bought Epiphone, he was also repping for Epiphone, and their sales shot up like 300% the first year that Gibson had them. So he was at the Christmas party, and he was talking to the president of Gibson Guitars, and just made this offhand comment that if things kept going the way they were, someday Epiphone might buy out Gibson. And the guy just like completely lost his mind and said, I want him out of here right now. He was fired like on the spot. Nice. And he ended up working for the rest of his career for CBS Fender. When I don't think CBS still owns Fender, but when CBS owned Fender, he was selling Fender guitars then for a while till he finally retired. But yeah, my uncle Andy was quite a character, and there's lots of stories that I could tell, but not here in a public forum.
Well, that's
I
great.
think people want to hear about some Apple stuff here too. So.
Is that what we're here for?
I got one more piece of Apple news, and
yeah, go ahead.
I finally convinced my wife to get an Apple Watch after 4 years.
Say that.
Nice.
So she came to me and she said she wants to do it. So I'm excited. This is somebody who says she never wants to do it because they're ugly. So now we got to make sure it's perfect.
I think mine looks great.
Oh wait.
So Dave, is this your wife?
That is my wife. She joined the chat.
So now you got to be on your best behavior, man.
I do.
This is why I don't give my wife the link.
She got the Apple Watch last year.
Hi, Kathy. So I met Kathy last year when I was over at Dave's house during MacStock.
Nice.
Actually, you met her when it was the first MacStock at the speaker dinner. Remember?
Oh, was it? Oh, see, I have a brain like a sieve, so things come into my mind and there's immediately flow out.
Dave, you have that $10,000 you owe me, right? You're gonna send it tomorrow.
I better. Oh, I better. Yeah, I'm gonna get that to you.
All right, Apple stuff.
Apple stuff.
Apple
Let's go.
stuff. Apple
Mass
stuff.
Singer comes on soon. Come on, let's go.
Okay, Netflix for news. This is a story from finance, yahoo.com, with only one. And you know, sometimes I went to all the trouble to move our screens around so that I could have this thing here at the bottom. With only 1/4 of less than expected iPhone sales, mostly due to circumstances outside of Apple's control, some analysts are already trying to talk about post-iPhone Apple. Mentions include services, which had already been growing by leaps and bounds, gaming, which is almost laughable without big-name developers, self-driving cars, which has been a bug in analyst reports for a few years with not much to show about it, and health along the lines of more functionality for the Apple Watch. So I don't know, guys. What do you think that Apple is going to kind of go the way of IBM and pretty much just go to services? And tell you what, let's start with Warren.
So I'm thinking about it, and so I'm thinking like Microsoft. And Microsoft started out as a software company, then they went to a services company, but then they dabbled into the hardware as well. They came out with some Surface devices and tried with phones. So, I think these days, I think it was different with IBM in the day, but I think these days, nothing is forever. And, you could become, Apple's will heavily get into services, but it doesn't mean they're not going to be doing some other things, or they might switch back, as time goes on. It might be an experiment with services, and maybe they'll continue. I mean, the rumors that keep coming out about new Apple hardware keeps, surfacing. So, I don't think, at least in the foreseeable future, they're going to abandon making software and hardware.
And making software for hardware.
I think they make too much money, probably in iOS, than they want to lose in services. So I think they're going to include services, but I don't think they're going to become just a services company, at least in the next 10 years.
Okay, what about you, Dave?
Yeah, I don't see them going to be a 100% services company anytime soon. But with all the rumors, like you said, Warren, that are out there, including the news app, that they're going to potentially have subscriptions with that, as well as the video service, the TV service. They're looking at that. I mean, I see it leaning towards the future of them expanding into more and more services. The iPhone was a cash cow for a long time. They're making a lot of money on the iPhone. They're still making money on it, but not anywhere near what it used to be. So, and with hardware, already the rumors, like you said, 16-inch MacBook Pro potentially, and new iPads. So I still think that they're going to be continuing on with hardware for the foreseeable future. I just don't see services 100%. But I like that. I like that because Apple should dabble into both sides of business, and the services business should continue on. And I want to see iCloud to expand even further than it already is. So I mean, but we'll see.
So I got into there was some troll that was trying to be a wise ass over in Twitter, as most Twitter trolls tend to be. Yeah. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize about Apple, especially if they're relatively new to the platform, is that Apple has been a carnival ride almost from the very beginning of their existence. They have gone up and they've gone down and they've gone back up and they've gone back down. I mean, they started with when they first incorporated the Apple II, and that took them to these incredible heights. And then the Mac came along, which didn't really sell that well at first, and then started to pick up steam, and Apple II started to drop off. And then, of course, IBM compatible PCs happened along with Windows, and their fortunes began to fall again in the 90s, only to be picked up When the iMac was released in 98, followed on with the iPod, with the iPod in 2001. And, you know, you have all of these different devices that at one time or another, everybody was like, well, Apple as a company just can't get along if they cancel this product, or if they spend less time talking about this product, or if this product starts to go down, you know, one way or another for whatever reason. And every single time there's been something new that has come along that's picked them back up again. So the fact that there's been one quarter where iPhones didn't meet some arbitrary standard that either analysts or Apple themselves said that they were going to sell is not that big a deal. It's not necessarily part of a trend. It's not, and you know what? Even if it is part of a trend where iPhones are starting to sell less and less, there'll be something else. There'll be something else to come along. You know, I don't understand this obsession with, you know, whatever Apple's latest and greatest bugaboo is as far as making money goes, that has to be the thing that lasts forever. None of this stuff does.
Well, it's the stockholders that have to
Yeah.
they have to please, and that's where it goes the bottom line. You know,
Okay.
there's a lot of stockholders out there that got to make money.
Well, we're
And
gonna.
there's no issue with them looking at different venues. I mean, that's a good thing that they look at different ways to make money throughout,
Of course.
the history of being a company.
Yeah,
We would
they
be
don't
more
remain
con-
static.
We would be more concerned if they didn't have a future plan. So it's good.
Yeah. All right. We're going to move on to the next thing, and Apple to use the Force to create universal apps. Apple is preparing to allow developers to create apps that will work in iOS on iPhones and iPads, and at the same time work with the Mac OS, according to Mark Gurman of Bloomberg. Project Marzipan is a program to help developers write code that will work on both platforms that Apple believes will hopefully create new software. Developers will still have to submit their apps individually for review to both the Mac OS and iOS, but there are plans to have a submit once, work on both strategy by 2021, according to this guy. Parts of this may depend on whether the Mac transitions to Apple's own designed microprocessors in 2020. Yeah, I don't know. Let's start with Mr. Dave. How you doing, Dave? What do you think?
Hey.
Universal apps and Apple's own processors.
I think universal apps is probably a good direction. If they can pull it off, that would be great. I mean, I think it'll make it a lot easier with the way Apple releases all these bits of software through their various ways, whether it be the Mac App Store, whether it be the iOS App Store, and people want to have universal type apps. I mean, you've got a lot of apps out there right now that have all three versions, but they all have to be developed independently. So is that going to make it a little bit easier? Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. But as far as the processors go, I could see it because, you know, Apple always has never really wanted to be dependent on a processor like a company like Intel. But I mean, they've been on Intel for
or IBM
years.
or Motorola,
or IBM or Motorola for that matter too. So I mean, that going back even further. But I mean, they've been on Intel for 13 years now, and it is obviously continuing to evolve. But there's challenges with Intel right now as far as getting the processors. I mean, I think a lot of right now, even the current processors that are out there, I think there's been some challenges keeping up with demand. And Apple doesn't want to deal with that anymore. So I definitely could see their microprocessors being out sooner than later when it comes to that. And they already have it now, obviously, in the iPad and the iPhone. Why not in the Mac? And then that'll make it a lot easier for them to work on getting the code working. So all these apps will be available. So for all three platforms at once.
All right. What do you think, Warren?
I'm pretty sure that there already are a couple of Marzipan apps out there. I think.
Well, there's some
News-
that Apple own.
Right.
Well, they're by Apple. The News app on the iOS devices and Mac OS is Marzipan, and the Home app as well. So they've already started it, and obviously it will run fine on the Intel chips as well. I think if they change it to an ARM chip, then then we're talking a little bit different. We're talking about actually changing the inherent operating system of a Mac to more of an iOS or ARM-based operating system, maybe a completely different operating system. But early reviews of Marzipan apps aren't even that great because they interact differently. Some people really don't like the News app on the Mac OS because it tries to become more of an iOS app. It's more touch centric. It's more scroll centric.
Do you think that that's is that a process of the different type of UIs for each OS, or is it based? Would you say it would be based on hardware?
It's definitely based on hardware. It has to do with the way you interact with it.
But that's a function. That's a function of the operating system. That's not necessarily a function of hardware.
Not. I mean, if a MacBook adds a touch screen, just for instance, then that's a hardware change. It has nothing to do with the operating system.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden now you have an iOS app essentially running on a Mac, as intended, as it was written for touch.
Or to run on both at the same time.
Or to run on both, but basically you could use a keyboard, mouse, or your finger. Of course, there's.
Well, let me ask you both something. What is your opinion on adding a touch-based element to the Mac OS? Is that something that you would want to use, or something that you think is inevitable?
The way it is now, I don't see a reason for it. But if they're getting serious about combining an iOS environment with a Mac and vice versa, then it might be a natural evolution to allow for touch input on a Mac.
Go ahead.
No, go. That's it.
Well, real quick, there's a comment there from Ken Nichols that says he cares about the Mac Pro. He uses it all the time. Ken, that's actually something we're going to talk about next, as a matter of fact. But we will get to that. So have patience, Obi-Wan.
Just to continue my thought, Microsoft just introduced in Microsoft Office for the Mac is the sketching capabilities and the drawing, and it's actually pretty cool. So, but what are you going to be able to do with it on a Mac? I mean, that service, other than using a mouse to do the sketching and drawing and writing.
Well, I mean, for stuff like that, you can use the Magic Trackpad, or really any trackpad with a pointing device.
You could, but then of course now that they've added it, and it's now going to be included in the iPad and more so iPad than iPhone, the iPad version. Now it's going to have that capability. So who knows? I mean, that's what you're looking at, different types of apps that are going to have those types of capabilities. Same thing with note-taking apps. I mean, OneNote with Microsoft. You want to be able to do that. Same thing with the notes, the Apple's own notes program. So I just don't know. I think Apple has been pretty resistant to wanting to do touch screens on Macs. I think they've been. Well,
I mean, that goes all the way back to when the iPad was first introduced. I mean, correct. Steve Jobs was like, why we don't want to put a touch-based user interface on a Mac, and what is the number one pointing device that everybody already has in their hands other than stylus?
Steve Jobs didn't want the iPad either. I mean, talk about ironic. He thought the iPad was not user-friendly either. So, I mean, again, if it becomes more of if the applications ask for that kind of interface, then you're going to need it. People will rather touch it than use a trackpad.
Well, do you think that we could be looking at a convergence, not necessarily of just software, but of hardware as well? I mean, one of the one of the quotes by Jobs was that computers are trucks and phones and tablets were like the actual future of where computing was going. And while there are a lot of people that, like my cousin Ken, for example, prefer to, or need the kind of power that a, multi-core super duper megahertz laid out kind of desktop, the kind of power you can get from a desktop or a high-end laptop as compared to a phone or a tablet. But, we've touched on this before. For 99% of the people out there, the type of processing power that you have in your phone or your tablet is enough for nearly everything that they do.
Yeah.
Don't make me pull out the Remax Mini.
Don't pull out the Remax. Steve Jobs said that people will gravitate towards the easiest device to use at any time, and that's the case. To perform a certain task that you come up in your mind, you're sitting on the couch, you are going to get the device that is easiest to get and easiest to get the answer or do what you need to do first. So that's going to be on a phone. On a phone is going to be first, and then when you realize you can't do what you want on a phone, you'll go to either a tablet, and then if you realize you can't do it on a tablet, you'll go to a laptop and then a desktop and so on. I forgot what he called it, but there was a term for it. But that's still the case. People will use the device that's easiest. I mean, not everybody's going to go on, to the upstairs desktop computer every time they want to Google something or search the internet. In fact, a lot of times now a voice assistant is going to replace a phone if you have to ask a question or do a search. So whatever's the easiest.
Okay. Why don't we move on to the next topic if I can figure out how to do that? I did it. Yeah, baby. And we're talking about, does Apple still need to put out a Mac Pro? Now, many are saying, this is a story from Mac Rumors, many are saying that as soon as mid-March, Apple might preview a new Mac Pro that is said to be modular in design and easily upgradable. The story goes on to say that a new Apple display at 31.6 inches, which is, in my mind, an oddly specific measurement, might also be previewed. Others are saying that the reveal might not be until WWDC in June. Now,
That sounds right.
at this point, is the Mac Pro such a niche item that actually selling one might take more resources than it would be worth? And let's start with Warren. What do you think, Warren?
So what was the question again? One more time.
The question is,
Yes.
number one, are you looking forward to a Mac Pro and this new Apple display? And is the Mac Pro such a niche item that actually selling one might take more resources than it's worth?
Okay. So first part, I am not looking forward to a Mac Pro. I am. I haven't owned a desktop in probably like 10 years, and I don't plan to. I like laptops. 31-inch monitor sounds nice, but it's still not in the market for one. And I don't think. I think they already kind of gauged out their resources from from last year. They started to actually some weird resource hunt they were doing. Didn't they invite like creative professionals and music professionals and like all these different industries and like come in, we're making a new Mac Pro, we need your input. I don't know what any of that means, but they're all in. They said they're doing it. And whatever they come out with, it's everybody's going to hate. because that's what people do.
Because it's not going to be exactly what they wanted in particular.
Right. Something will be soldered onto the board, and they'll be like, well, I could remove the hard drive, I could remove the RAM, but that E chip thing I want to replace, I can't. It's stuck.
With a faster E chip that's 10% faster, that doesn't really do anything, but it's faster.
The OWC will sell for
for less money.
Less, yes, something like that.
What do you think, David?
Yeah, I mean, I think and then look at the iMac Pro. That thing starts at $5,000. I mean, it's a very niche. It's a very niche product. You're only going to get people that are buying it that their company's paying for. I mean, I can't imagine that the Mac Pro is going to start for less than $3,000. I mean, that's where the
it can't. I can't see how it could.
Yeah, I mean, it just can't. Whereas you go look at a Mac Mini, if you load up that Mac Mini with everything that's on it, I mean, that's a very powerful machine. So it's really going to be hard to say as far as the market goes, where that's going to be. I mean, now pros are itching for this. I mean, they haven't released a Mac Pro since 2013 with a can.
Yeah, so, and it's not like that one exactly set the world on fire.
No, it didn't. It was bad. Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing too is it's got to be upgradable. People want these pros want to have these machines that you can upgrade. I mean, and that's what you say. Like Warren just made a comment about it. Oh, it's probably going to think soldered onto the board again. So you got to buy the RAM you need. I mean, I'm sure just like the iMac Pro, you're going to have 64 gigs of RAM that'll be available for it. Who knows, even more. But if you want to be able to bulk it up, yeah, I mean, it's going to definitely make a difference. Now, as far as the screen goes, I mean, I still have the old Thunderbolt 27-inch display I'm looking at right now. It's a great monitor. I mean, I got it for a great deal. A year or two before it got discontinued. So it is odd that they're doing a 31.6 inch versus maybe a 32 inch.
Yeah. I saw that and I was kind of like 31 point. I mean, where does a number like that come from?
I'm rounding up. It's 32 inch. Right? I mean, let's face it. I mean, the 32 inch monitors are hot right now. I mean, I've ordered them before for work when they need them for plan review, looking at plans. You want to have a monitor that's got a really nice, crisp display and being able to look at a lot of these things with detail. Same thing with graphic arts.
But isn't that the problem with a lot of these large monitors? Unless you're getting super high end, I mean, you can now pick up 27 and 28 inch monitors for a song, but most of them suck.
Yeah,
your pixel count is way down. So yeah, you've got this huge screen, but half the crap on it is all blurred out.
Yeah, I think Dell makes some good monitors. I've seen their 27 and 32s. You get them between $600 and $800. So I mean, I know this monitor, knowing Apple, it's probably going to be $1,200 to $1,400 for a monitor, which is that's up there as far as price goes. And again, it's going to be a niche market. I can't imagine. I mean, look what they're doing right now. The monitors you get through Apple now are those LGs. I mean, they're charging $1,200 for that 27 inch.
Not that great.
And they're not that great.
Oh, they aren't. I don't know. I haven't looked at one.
No,
they get
Marcus wants a 31-inch MacBook Pro.
Well, who doesn't? I mean, that's what I want.
Yeah, I'm gonna lug around a 31-inch screen as a laptop.
That's actually right up. That's my market because my wife doesn't let me have desktops in the house. So, so I'm thinking a 31-inch MacBook Pro would
just be spot on. Then you just got to try to find like a backpack or something to put the damn thing.
No,
in.
It doesn't go anywhere. It will just stay on the counter. So.
Now I've owned a couple of the older Mac Pros. I never had any of the 2013s.
And the cheese graters.
Yeah, but I certainly had a 2008 that I really liked, and I had a 2010 model that I ended up replacing with the 27-inch iMac that I've got right now. And, and it wasn't long after I gave that computer to my son. It was like, why did I do that? I really, really liked this computer. And there was something about those cheese grater Mac Pros that people really just loved. And the 2013 Mac Pro, I think, was such a disappointment. Oh, they were huge. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They were tremendous. but their expandability was just, oh my God. You had 4 drive bays. You had, 4 or 5 PCIe slots. You had on some of these, up to 128 gigs of RAM. I mean, if you had the scratch, you could outfit one of these things and it would fly you to freaking Mars. So
yeah, you could configure 2013 that way too. It's just
only externally though. It has to be a lot of that, especially when you're talking about graphics cards. Apple expected that AMD and ATI were going to come out with graphics cards to replace the. I think AMD made the ones on the 2013. It had Fire in the name of it, the Fire Dragon XJ9 or whatever it was they called the base and the upgraded graphics cards for the 2013 Mac Pros, but nobody did. The only thing that you could really do with the 2013 Mac Pro that didn't require something from Apple was RAM and storage. Everything else, and that all had to be external. And the problem was the external bus that they were using for those 2013 Mac Pros wasn't all that. It wasn't nearly as fast as what we're getting speeds with Thunderbolt. So, I mean, we were talking about this. You could take this new Mac Mini, get a 6-core Mac Mini, right. Give it just the basic minimum as far as RAM and storage goes, and then just use the storage for the operating system, and then use Thunderbolt to outfit that sucker like crazy.
Yep. You can only go up to 64 gig of RAM on the new Mac on the old Mac Pro.
Okay.
The trash can. And you could get 2.7, and a 1 terabyte SSD. So you're looking at
but that's a machine that's nearly what 8 years old, 9 years old.
I'm not making any recommendations that you do that. I'm just saying that you could. That's how you can max
get 64 gig on a Mac Mini too. So
yeah. So that's an awesome machine.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for people that don't want to wait for a new Mac Pro, you can outfit a Mac Mini to do pretty much everything that a Mac Pro is going to be able to.
But the Mini's not
from what we know.
The Mini's not upgradable either, right?
Sure it is through Thunderbolt. You can upgrade the RAM. You can upgrade the RAM in the Mini, and that's pretty much it.
Was that it? I thought it was soldered.
Nope.
No. The Mac Mini, you can upgrade the RAM.
You can't upgrade the storage.
You're pretty much taking the thing half apart to get to it.
Right, but that's Mac Minis in general.
Before the old Mac Mini, you could just take you were able to take the lid off and just pop them in. This one, you actually have to slide the chassis out to get to it, and it's under the fan. So I watched.
Well, that's the way it used to be.
No,
the older Mac Minis prior to
there was
2010.
Year, there was 1 year that they did that. The rest of them had the ability to screw the top off. There was one, not all of them.
Well, from 2010 on, they put that black rubber seal on the bottom, which allowed you access to the RAM. But all the ones before that were, I mean, you literally had to take the whole thing apart to do almost anything with it. I took a number of them apart. They were a royal pain in the ass. All right.
All right, let's move on.
So, moving on.
Timer.
Moving on.
Messinger.
Next story. Everything is awesomely to be updated. This is a story from Apple Insider. The 12.2s are almost here for iOS and the 4K Apple TVs based on public betas that have just been released one day after the development betas, which typically means that the actual updates for us regular folks is probably not far off. Now, before you get too excited, it's apparently mostly a few UI changes along with an updated news app and re-enabling group FaceTime for at least the second time. And in case your Mac feels left out, you can also potentially disable your main computer by participating in the public betas for the Mac OS, which one was released yesterday for version 10.14.4. In return, if you sign up for this public beta and potentially destroy your computer, you can get the Canadian version of Apple News, and it will also support Safari autofill for Macs with Touch ID. Worth it. Totally worth it. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I think these updates are, like you said, are just going to be just
incremental.
Nothing, incremental, nothing exciting right now. I think, yeah, we have to wait for WWDC in June when iOS 13 gets announced. But I just don't see anything too terribly exciting about this right now. Mac OS, on the other hand, yeah, it continues to evolve and updates, and yeah, 10.14.4 is in beta now. But I mean, this Mojave is pretty solid. I think it's pretty solid OS now at this point. Okay, yeah, great. I feel good for our Canadian listeners that they can get Apple News right now. But I think really what the updates are, and I love people. I love you guys in Canada. It's
well, you're much closer to them than I am.
Yeah, well, oh, that's right. I am actually. I have a friend.
Yeah.
So the Apple News app, I think, is really, because I talked about it during my podcast, is I think that's coming. It'll be exciting with not only the news for
the subscription
services, and then you have the TV part of that puzzle. That these OSs have to be updated just because they gotta be ready to go. With that, it was interesting. I'm going to go off the top here a little bit here. Apple bought that company Texture. Texture was that's really what motivated them to do the news app in the first place. That was about a year ago. At first, it was said that Texture was just going to operate independently because they didn't have anything negotiated with any of the magazine publishers in order to go through and put them as part of the news app. So I think I had thought at first when I talked about it, that it was already a done deal, but no, they still got some negotiating to do. But anyway, not go off on topic there, but definitely these OSs are they're gonna have to adapt to things like changes with apps like the news app.
Okay, what do you think, Warren?
Just touch on the betas a little bit. It's not as exciting as it sounds, especially the Mac OS betas. Very little. I mean, if I showed you a machine with the beta on it and the actual version of Mojave side by side, you wouldn't. You could sit on it for an hour and you wouldn't know the difference. It's not really the way it used to be. Especially.
It's not really. Whoops, sorry about that. It wasn't. I know. Sorry. It wasn't until it's not until you start getting into the next major version of operating system that you start to see some differences.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you get into the alpha of the next one.
Yeah.
But once you hit like beta, like maybe after beta 2 or beta 3 of something, literally it's
relatively
very anticlimactic. Yeah, it's not that much. Occasionally on an iOS device something stupid happens, and then the next beta fixes it. But it's not. I think the public betas are fairly, I don't want to say safe. Certainly if you have a mission critical machine, I wouldn't put it on there. But if you want to play around, nothing's going to explode. And mostly it works. Just keep it back up.
Well, what about, do you think, we are only really, I guess, 3 months away from WWDC, 4 months away from WWDC? Sure. Do you think that they'll do another full OS update, or do you think that with some of the stuff that's going on that they might hold off and stick with Mojave for another year until some of these other changes come into place?
No,
not at all. They will definitely release another version. The rumor is Mojave and iOS 12 was more of a performance boost session year, so people are hoping now for a little more features, but you haven't really heard of any of the features. The only thing I kind of heard was the iPad, iOS 13 for the iPad might have a little more desktop like features like multitasking, maybe multi-user login, things like that. But other than that, I haven't really heard of anything slated.
groundbreaking.
Yeah, nothing for it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we all know that the Masked Singer is almost going to come on, so
10 minutes.
we need to wrap this up. So, I'd like to say,
spin that.
I think there's only like 2 or 3 more episodes left. So after they're over, we could do 3 hours.
Why are there any? Thank you all for joining us this evening. We really, really do appreciate the fact that you have taken the time to come and spend a little time with us. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. Let's do our outros. We're gonna start with Mr. Warren. Warren, would you like to tell people how to get a hold of you, or are you sticking with Facebook only?
It's ever so easy. It's not easy.
It's
Facebook,
not at all easy.
It's ever so not easy to contact me. Yeah, Facebook. Yeah. I think I'm listed under my name on Facebook.
Well, that's better than being listed under somebody else's name.
It could be.
Yeah.
I'm listed under your name. Yep.
Yeah, great. How about you, Dave? In Guatemala.
Well, you can reach me at my podcast, In Touch with iOS, at intouchwithios.com. Like I just said at the beginning of the show, got a new episode out. Talked to the editor-in-chief of iPhone Life magazine. Check it out. It was a great show. And I also do another podcast, which is tech related. It's for horse racing, Off the Charts horseracing.com. Both of them are in iTunes. You also can get me on Twitter at DaveG65. And I'm also president of the Suburban Chicago Apple Users. And we do that too. So I keep active.
Well, cool. If you would like to get a hold of me, let's see if I can figure this out. Here we go. You can reach me via email, guy@mymac.com. I'm also on the Twitters, Mac Parrot or Vert Shark over there on the Twitters. I'm a regular contributor to mymac.com, and nearly everything I do, I end up putting on over at vertshark.com. You can check out all that stuff over there at vertshark.com. Yeah. I do on the weekends, I do the mymac.com podcast, Can't Even Speak Now, with Gazmaz. As a matter of fact, next month will be 9 years that Gaz and I have been doing the mymac.com podcast. We are looking forward to, we need new bumpers. And if you don't know what a bumper is basically like a 5 to 8 second little thing saying, I listen to, blah, 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 blah. Except ours are a little bit different. We want people to insult us and tell us how terrible we are. And that has worked out very, very well over the last 9 years. Actually, let me, I bet I can do this somewhere. I know I got them here somewhere. Where is all the ones that Carl Madden did for us?
Brave.
Here we go. Here's one right here. Let's see. No, is that it?
The real reason Johnny Ive removed the headphone jack. The G-Men on the MyMac Podcast.
So, that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for.
Well, that was easy. It was pleasant.
Oh, was it? Oh, well, let's see.
Professional, informative, and entertaining are just words in a dictionary to the G-Men on the MyMac Podcast.
There we go. How about that one? That one was a little bit different. So those are the kinds of things that we appreciate and that we like. And if you do any of those kinds of things, you get something in return. And it's called a Woody, and that is spelled big W, big O, big O, big T, little I, little E. That spells Woody. I can't tell you what it is, but it will change your life. I think David has one. Don't you have one, David?
I do. When I came on your show for the first time.
Yeah. And how has that affected your life? Well, I noticed you're doing more podcasts, so.
I am. I even have it framed. I don't have it hung up behind me here.
So I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or not.
No.
Yeah. I also have a Patreon page if you'd like to help support the stuff that I do. Patreon.com/MacParrot. If you'd like to just make a a one-time donation, which is groovy cool as well. You can send that to coffee.com, ko-fi.com/Mac Parrot. All of these things help support the stuff that I do and the money that I put out for all of this stuff. But I think that is going to do it for this evening, because I know Warren has like 5 minutes before he has to go. So we are going to end this show. Thank you all so very, very much for watching. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Warren. I don't know what's going on there, but it's
I'm playing the Jaws theme for you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. That's great.
All right. That's your theme music. Good night, Warren.
That's all we're going to do for tonight. We'll see you guys next week right here on the Mac to the Future livecast.